Hey guys, this is Amy from Humility and Doxology, and I am drinking some Tension Tamer tea, one of my favorite mugs. It says, the venerable dead are waiting in my library to entertain me and relieve me from the nonsense of surviving mortals. So I thought this would be an appropriate mug to drink my Tension Tamer tea out of after a long day of homeschool planning. So I thought I would just talk to you guys a little bit about how I do sort of a big picture plan. It's really important to me that we have a structure because of my own personality and also the personality of my children. We just thrive better. There's more peace when we kind of all know what to expect at any given time. In fact, I've become less loosey-goosey actually over the past decade or so than I was in the past. A lot of times I hear homeschool moms talk about like becoming more and more relaxed as they homeschool. For me, I think because of the children that God gave me and the makeup of our home and family, it's actually required a little bit more planning than I used to care to do. But along with that, it's still really important to me that we have flexibility, that there's freedom. I cannot be the person who writes out all of the lessons at the beginning of the year. I just don't like the feeling of being behind. I don't like that pressure of feeling like we have to finish something like by a certain date or, you know, something's wrong. When I tell the kids that we're really not in a race, that I want them to go at their own pace as they learn, like I want that to be genuine. And if in the back of my mind I'm like, but I'm gonna have to redo all the, all the lesson plans, that's not really gonna help me be earnestly encouraging to the kids. So I have found that it's better for me. And again, this is like so important. And if there's only one thing that is helpful, I hope it's that you can take away that you have to plan, whether you're a homeschooler or just planning for your family. I mean, this is just sort of general advice. But you have to plan in a way that fits with your family. And you can't look at another family and how they plan and how they schedule, whether like how they write out their, weekly schedule or their yearly goals, and feel the pressure to completely imitate what they do. I hope that me sharing how I do it is helpful to you. Maybe you can learn something and apply it to your family. I've certainly learned and gleaned many, many wise ideas over the years from many folks. But I just think it's really important to plan in a way that fits your personality and not try to force yourself into a model that is going to end up bringing more stress to you and to your children. So that is why I like to do a big picture homeschool planning. So, well, first, this isn't really planning specific related, but I should say that I really think beginning your planning day well, so with some movement, whether it's a walk or whatever. If you follow me on Instagram, you saw I went to my early cycle class this morning, and then a good like protein breakfast and coffee. Really, that just helps me start the planning day off well. It clears the brain and kind of makes you feel like you've already accomplished something before you've started. So today I kind of went through all of the books and textbooks and papers and kind of things that I had gathered for the upcoming school year for our, 4 school-age children. Next year we're going to have a first grader, a third grader, a sixth grader, and an eighth grader, which is crazy. And I already knew what we were going to be studying, but today I actually went through actually with pencil and paper because it's just better for me. I like to be able to scribble and like draw little arrows and circle things and scribble stuff out, and just sit on the floor with all my books around me, which is not really conducive with a laptop, or it's not going to work as well for me. Anyway, so I went through each of the children, every single subject that I kind of had in my mind that we were going to be studying. And I just was really upfront and honest with myself. Like, how much time is this actually going to take if we're actually going to do what I think we're going to do? I think, how many specific chapters are there in this book? You know, is this something that we're going to do like a chapter a week? Some of them I decided, you know what, let's just take 2 weeks per chapter, things like that. So really writing out my time budget. And that's always a little bit sad because you realize you might have planned for 70-hour weeks for your 6-year-old, which would be crazy. So that just makes you have to be realistic. Okay, well, I only have 30 minutes that we can spend on this. So what's the best way that I can spend 30 minutes? Just like when you go to the store, you don't go and like buy all the things you want to buy, or if you do, you're going to have a debt problem, right? You go in, you say, okay, well, I have $30 to spend. So what's the best use of my $30? It's the same kind of idea. So after I did that for each child, each subject, I then went through and actually did sort of like a weekly time schedule. But you have to understand, we're not going to follow this rigidly. This is more for me, again, with that being realistic, having a time budget, making sure that I have enough time to check in with each child at certain points of the week. And it was very helpful as I started doing that. I realized, this isn't going to work. I'm going to have to go back again to my brainstorm list and make changes there, because this isn't like, I'm not ubiquitous. I can't be 3 places at the same time. Also making sure that I put in the schedule things like the 2 times that we go to the Y a week. There's a class I like to go to. There's pickleball my son enjoys. Well, I can't just not put that on the calendar and schedule all those hours, not counting the hours for the driving time there. I have to take all that into account in my plan in order to be realistic. And I have found that the more realistic, and in fact, maybe even pessimistic I am in my planning time, actually means that we're going to have more peace and joy and optimism during the school year. So I like to be a total like Eeyore when I'm planning, like, oh, we'll never be able to finish this in time. And then I give myself plenty of extra time, and it's just to have all that buffer then means we're not stressed and, you know, like, oh, we've got to keep going during the school year. I hope that makes sense. So I'll kind of show you, like, this is just, again, my scribbles, but I just took a basic form and wrote in pencil so I could move things around. And I did that for each child, and I would make special notes if it was something that they were going to need me for, so I could make sure that in the flow of the week, I was going to be able to flow with my energy too. Like, I don't want to plan 5 things in a row that I have to do with 5 different kids. I'd like to also balance out my energy, so I have time to go to the bathroom by myself or whatever. So I find that helpful as well, to really pay attention to my energy as I'm looking at the plan and schedule for the kids. The next thing I did after that was to actually take all my scribbles and my notes and type up the kind of course of study for each child. And I just wrote, you know, real basic, like, here's the subject, here is the, you know, text that they're going to be using. It's this many chapters. Our goal is to, you know, do this many chapters a week. I'm estimating it will take about this much time. And then here's sort of what it looks like. I kind of define what it means to have done either finished a chapter, in the case of a subject that I'm not exactly sure how long it will take us. For instance, my oldest son is actually going to be taking pre-calculus this upcoming year, and I have absolutely no desire to assign him a certain number of chapters a week for that, because I want to go slowly and make sure he really understands it. So instead, I created a plan of, here's how many days I want him to work, here is the amount of time I want him to spend, and then here's sort of the flow chart that he'll go through in order to like complete that chapter. So I'm not going to set up a goal of, do chapter 1 this week and chapter 5 that week. Instead, I just want to see him being consistent and spending that daily time. And that's way more important to me than hitting a certain chapter by a certain date. So I typed that out for each kid. And then I was able to create their weekly checkoff lists. And this is one of my favorite things. Like, this has worked out so well for our family. I started doing this a few years ago. I had tried different things. They just didn't work for us. Like at the beginning of the week to write, here, do these chapters or these pages didn't always work, because sometimes they would move really quickly and sometimes they would go really slowly and we'd need to stop and not move forward. And so it didn't feel like a very efficient way to actually gauge their work or give them an assignment. So again, these are just like, I just did these this afternoon, so I'm sure they'll get tweaked a little bit. But I wanted to show an example, one for my 8th grader and then one for my 1st grader. So this is for Joshua, my 13-year-old. See, you'll notice at the top for his math, I have a place for him to mark which day he did his work, so that at the end of the week, I can easily see, oh, this week he missed 2 days. I wonder why he didn't do that work that day. He'll be able then to record for me the pages that he studied, which test he took, and the videos he watched. So I will still have a record of what he actually did. And then what's a lot more important to me is seeing the consistency of the days of the week that he was working. For humanities, he is required to have 5 reading journal entries completed at the end of the week. And so instead of giving that again a day-to-day assignment, like if he wants to work ahead, I want him to have the freedom to do that, to know what it means to be done for the week. So I have the reading journal numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then he can just mark off, like if on Monday he does extra reading and wants to go ahead and do 2 journal pages, he can do that. He'll just mark off 1 and 2. There's also a place to, sorry, this is awkward to hold. There's also a place on here to show if he did exercise, if he had outside time, some of those things that aren't necessarily part of school, but I would like for him to be able to keep that in mind as he's planning his time. So there's a lot more detail on here. He has more to do. But the basic is the same form that I do even with my youngest. So here is our 1st grader. And you can see here that I just have basic things. And we'll just mark off the day of the week that she did that. Now, she may have a day where her math takes like 5 minutes and she just finishes it, depending on what I gave her for the day. So again, it's more like just do the next thing and be consistent. Having those consistent habits is a lot more important to me. And just because each day is there doesn't mean necessarily every subject will get hit every day. It'll just be a visual for us all at the end of the week to see, did we postpone all of your work till the end of the week? Why did you do that? Let's plan better next week. Or, of course, we got sick on Wednesday, or we had out of town guests. So that's why we didn't have work on Wednesday or whatever. I also put on her page a space for her to check off special time with her 3-year-old little brother. I think that will make her feel kind of special to have that actually on her checkoff list. I actually added like extra things I wouldn't normally put on a checklist for her, just because she is at an age where her older siblings are pulling away a little bit more and having more responsibility, and she wants to be a big kid. So I put stuff on there like playing with her little brother, just so she would, for her personality, that will make her feel happier and older to be more like her big siblings. I feel like I had all these things that were all planned in my head, but I have planning brain and it's just not coming out very well right now. Let me see what else. This, I am so glad I saw this on my notes. This is really important and one of the great things that has worked really well for our family. So I really don't like having an online calendar. It's not pretty, but I am a total convert because it has been so effective for our family. Yeah, Lynette, exactly. So we actually have shared Google Calendars in our family. So I'm actually going to add my older children onto that Sloan family calendar this upcoming year, so that they can start taking ownership of some of the things that are part of their life. So that's a calendar that I can edit, my husband can edit, and we can all see the same calendar. Then I have a separate calendar that's just for me, like things that my husband doesn't really need to worry about, reminders I have to myself. Oh, check on farm animal days because they typically come in April. So I will put a reminder that repeats annually on my calendar every February, check on the dates for the farm animal days. And I actually used that today to put, there were some things as I was planning, like I said earlier, like having to be realistic. Oh, I planned 70 hours for this week. That's not going to work. So I had to move some things to a more monthly time frame. But I have found that if I just sort of put on my schedule or my plan, do this monthly, and I don't actually put it in the calendar, like do it this day at this time, we typically forget to do it and it just never actually happens. So I went ahead and put in the calendar a monthly date with my daughter to go over her logic assignments. We're not going to be able to do that every week, but we can do it every month. I put a date in there to go over some literature with and discuss some books with my son. Again, I can't have necessarily a lengthy literary discussion with him every week, but I can do it every month. And by putting it in the calendar now and scheduling it out, I mean, I can always reschedule it if I need to, but it'll be that reminder. I'm not going to miss October, November, December, because it's right there in the calendar. So I would encourage you to use your online calendars, those monthly repeated features, use those to your homeschool advantage as well. Let's see what else I forgot due to planning brain. Let's see, so we talked about the time budget, being generous, being a pessimist on this end, giving lots of time so that we have more freedom and flexibility in the actual school year. Let's see. I feel like there was something else, but I don't remember what it was now. Any of you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. I still have a few last things to do. I need to figure out how to ease in the school year, so those first weeks or so, to not do all the subjects at one time. And I want to kind of plan and think through how I'm going to do that. I also have a brainstorm for our morning time, but I still need to like type up our memory work and get those pages in order. And I also still need to make a field trip list. We're studying American history this year, and that's perfect because there's so much history within easy driving distance of the Southeast. So I'm hoping to be purposeful now and plan some fun field trips. So I dropped some links in the description to our textbook free history philosophy and about the reading journals that I train my younger children to develop the habit, and also an older post about our morning time routine and how we think through that. So I hope that those can be helpful to you all. And thank you for coming. Bye.